Here I've got a question where I can use SOH CAH TOA to find a missing side length in a right angle triangle. Now I know this is a right triangle because of that square that's in one of the corners. If the square wasn't there, the question would have to tell you that this is a right triangle, either telling you there's a 90-degree angle in there. But if it doesn't say that and it's not indicated as a right triangle, you can't use SOH CAH TOA. The first step in SOH CAH TOA is to figure out which angle you're working with. In this case, I'm going to work with the 40-degree angle that's identified given in the question. The next step is to label each side of the triangle based on that angle. So the first side I'm going to label is always my hypotenuse. And this is the hypotenuse because it's across from the 90-degree angle in this right angle triangle. The next side I'm going to label is opposite. Out from the angle I'm working with, the side that's across from it is always called my opposite side. Now the remaining side, and in this problem, the side I'm interested in solving for, is called adjacent. Adjacent just means next to. So adjacent, being the third side, the only one left to label, is next to my angle, but it's not the hypotenuse. The next step here is to write out SOH CAH and TOA to figure out which of these formulas is going to help me in this question. SOH CAH TOA is actually three separate formulas, and we can only ever use one formula at a time. So let's see what we have to do to choose the right one between SOH CAH and TOA so we can answer the question. Now in this one, what the side that I'm looking for is adjacent. What's given to me in the question is opposite. That means that my hypotenuse in this question is not going to be used. So I need to find the formula that uses opposite and adjacent to help me solve for the missing value. So here this means sin x equals opposite over hypotenuse. This one uses hypotenuse. I don't want this formula. The middle one, cos of x equals adjacent over hypotenuse. There's that hypotenuse again, so I can't use this formula. Now here's the winner. Tan of x equals opposite over adjacent. So here when I'm using this formula, what I've got to remember is that the question gave me some information. Beside my tan, cos, or sin, depending on which formula I'm using, I always fill in the angle that I'm working with instead of x. So this formula becomes tan 40 equals opposite divided by adjacent. Opposite's a given measurement, it's 14. And of course adjacent is what I was looking for. I'm going to leave that as x. Now comes the tricky part, and that's figuring out how to solve for x with this confusing looking equation. Well, the first thing I can do is make tan of 40 into a fraction. And the reason I do that is because now I can cross multiply to solve for x. Cross multiplying is actually a lot easier than it seems. All I need to do is take my three known values and use them to solve for x. In this case, I have 1 and 14 that are diagonal to each other, and tan of 40. These diagonal values always get multiplied, and then I divide by that third value. So in this one, I'm going to do 1 times 14 divided by tan 40. Let's see that on the calculator. So here I do 1 times 14. That's obvious, I'm going to get 14. Divided by tan 40. On my calculator, I'm going to hit the divided by button, press 40, and then tan. Now be careful, that's not my answer. That's actually the tangent of 40 degrees. So to get an answer for that, 14 divided by the tangent of 40, I've got to press equals. And my answer here for x is 16.68 centimeters. Now watch out because every calculator is different. Mine wanted me to push 40 and then the tan button to get that ratio. Some calculators have you push 10 and then 40 for the angle. So be careful and practice on yours to figure out what order you have to push the buttons in. And that's the answer I was looking for. In this second example, what we've got is a right angle triangle where I know two side lengths and the question's asking me to solve for a missing angle in that triangle. Now I know one of the angles is 90 degrees because of that box in the corner, and that's why I can use SOH CAH TOA to solve for the missing angle. So obviously in this question, the angle that I'm working with has been chosen for me because the question has an x in this corner, meaning I need to find out what this angle is. Now once we've figured out which angle we're working with, we label the triangle. So the first side that we label is the hypotenuse. It's across from the 90-degree angle. So if you draw an imaginary arrow out from your right angle, right across from that, that side is always called hypotenuse. The next side I'm going to label is opposite, and that's the side that's across from the angle I'm working with. Now I don't need to know this side, nor do I have it, but this helps me label the rest of the triangle. So the third side I have to label is called adjacent. And that one's easy to label because it follows hypotenuse and opposite. Remember, hypotenuse across from the 90, opposite side across from my angle, and adjacent is that side that's left. So I'm going to write out my three formulas, SOH, CAH, and TOA, and then choose the one I'm going to work with. I need the one that uses adjacent and hypotenuse. So this one's opposite and hypotenuse. I don't want that one. This one's opposite and adjacent. I don't want that one. Here's the one I need, adjacent over hypotenuse. So when I write out the formula, I can then see where to put my numbers. So this is going to go, scratch that, cos of the unknown angle is equal to adjacent, 28, divided by hypotenuse, 40. Now in this one, I could rewrite this, cos of x degrees equals, now 28 divided by 40, if I simplify that fraction into a decimal, gives me 0.7. Now I'm almost at my answer, but this doesn't really help me. I wasn't interested in the cosine of the angle. What I really need is the angle itself. So to get rid of this cos out front, I leave the 0.7 on my calculator and I press second function cos on my calculator. Now if you look closely, there's a little cos minus 1 above the cos button. So when I do second function cos, it kind of removes the cosine. Now the calculator is a little bit hard to see here. Yours might have a second function button like mine, or it might have a shift button. Whatever the button is, you're looking for that cos minus 1. What cos minus 1 does is it eliminates that cosine ratio because we don't want it there in our final answer. What we're looking for, once we get rid of that, is the measure of the actual angle, not the ratio of the cosine, and leaves me just with an angle. So x degrees is equal to 45.57. That's the measure of that missing angle.